Welcome everyone. It's Sunday Studio with Karen Margulis. If you were watching just a few minutes ago through Facebook Live, we had slight technical difficulties out of our control, and unfortunately, it does not allow us to continue if you have to start over. So I'm going to just start over. So for those of you who are watching, welcome back. And those of you who are just tuning in now or who are watching this on YouTube later on, what I'm doing today is painting on a black surface. I'm doing a wildflower painting, some Queen Anne's lace, because I'm very much in wildflower mode because I'm working on my latest PDF demo, which is my top 10 tips and techniques for painting the landscape in bloom. I'm really excited about that, and that's going to be coming soon. But this weekend I gave myself a challenge to paint only on a black surface. Now we can buy black paper. Different brands have their own paper. I know that UArt is coming out with black paper. They presented it at the IAPS convention, and I think they said it'll be available in the fall. This is just a poster that shows different brands and different ways you can get a black surface. You can check this out on my blog, which is karenmargulis.com. I have that on my board. You can see that. So I've talked about working on black already. But you don't have to buy black paper. You can make your own black paper very easily. You can tone paper black. You can use any kind of paint as long as it's thin enough so that it doesn't clog the tooth of the paper. You can use a black pastel, and you can rub it in, or you can liquefy it with water or rubbing alcohol or turpenoid. But what I'm using here today is one of my very favorite materials, and which is an Artgraph Taylor's Chalk carbon disc. Okay, and it looks kind of like this. And it feels waxy, but it goes on. It's amazing the way it goes on. It's not really waxy at all. I did this just a few minutes ago. I'll do a little bit more just so that you can see if you tuned in after our technical glitch. So I put very little pigment on the paper. And by the way, this is UArt paper. Excuse me. But when I wet it with water, I'm using water, look at how rich and dark this is. So it's a really wonderful way to get very interesting. And I like the gradation that I'm getting with the black. Instead of having just a plain, pure black surface, I get a nice gradation going on when I'm just wetting this. These Artgraph come in various earth colors, and they come in the primary colors red, yellow, and blue as well. So it's a lot of fun. So we would have to wait for this to dry for the demo, and I don't want us to have to wait. So what I've done is have one ready. So I did this morning, and so now it's dry, and I have a nice, interesting dark surface. Let me show you the preliminary things that I've done, my plan. So here's my photo. Right here. Here's my photo. This I took, I'm going to write a blog post about this. I took this photo at a gas station parking lot in front of the dumpster. And the story of this is, I got out of the car while my son was getting gas, and I'm taking all these pictures, this wonderful stand of Queen Anne's lace next to the dumpster. And you know, you eliminate the dumpster. We get in the car, we're about to drive away. Here comes a big guy on a huge riding lawnmower grass tractor, right? And he proceeded to get ready to, he mowed the whole thing down. I couldn't watch. But anyways, I got there just in time. So I did the thumbnail. This is basically a black and white thumbnail, and then I repeated that here on the paper.
Oh, you're getting some birthday wishes already.
Oh, thank you. Tomorrow is my birthday. What did I get? I got a travel blanket. What else did I get?
Jewelry.
We did some thrift stores today. I love going thrift store. I got some great art books. I'll be blogging about those. Alright, so I'm ready to start the painting. This is on UArt. art, I'm not sure which grade, probably 4 or 500. And this is the palette. Can you get that? So I picked out some darks, some greens. These are the blue flowers. These are some of the grass colors, and then these are the colors I'm going to be putting in the Queen Anne's lace. And I'll probably also, I don't know if you can get this as well, these are some Diane Townsend soft form pastels. I've been really enjoying this set of greens and this really nice set of mauvey pinks. And this, of course, is my grass box. These are hard pastels that I use to create some of the finer detail in the grasses. So I'll probably be going to those as well. So the first thing that I'm going to do is put on my glasses. And I'm going to reinforce all the dark areas. So the whole idea behind this particular painting is that these flowers are up against dark woods. It's not really the dark woods. It was really a field of some sort behind the gas station. But I want the flowers to stand out from this dark background. So what I'm doing is I'm going over the black underpainting with a very dark value blue, like a navy blue, very lightly. And I'm going and I'm just covering all this dark area down into where the grasses are, just a little bit. I'm going to connect them, so I'm going to darken the bottom just a little bit more than I have. All right. Next, I'm going to add another dark because I want the darks to be dark and interesting. Like I talk about this in my workshops, I like to have a fine wine, not a cheap wine. Cheap wine would be one grape. A fine wine is a wonderful blend of flavors. So I'm layering dark value colors. And they're the similar values, so they can layer together very nicely. And here's another one. This one's a little bit lighter. You can see how it stands out more. But I really like it, so I'll just add a little bit of it in there. I don't need a whole lot of that. Now, it's really actually green back there. So now I have enough layers that I'm going to actually come in and add a green. And this is a dark green.
Someone's missed a few demos, Marjorie. Oh, how she can see them.
They're on my, the demos that I've done for the Facebook Live can be found on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and then just put in my name, and you should be able to find them. And be sure to sign up for my YouTube channel, because then you'll get notified when I post a new one. And I try to post these demos just as they are. They're not edited, they're not fancy, they're not perfect by any means, but if I had to take the time to do editing and do fancy, I probably wouldn't be doing this, so that's the way I like to do it. I've added a little more green, and now I want to create a feeling of some of the light filtering through some of these dark woods. So I want to use just a hair lighter value and just skip that around in a few different places. So this kind of will look like some light, so it's not just a dense dark curtain. And I really wanted a bluer green here. Let's try this one. There we go. So a lot of this is not very noticeable, and that's because I'm working with a very narrow range of value, meaning they're almost all the same dark and light, and just a little bit of a variation. So everything sort of just flows together. So that's good. I've got the background in place. Now what I want to do is work on the dirt, or what's holding these flowers in place, or the grasses in place. And so I'm going to go to some of these. There it goes. It's not so bad. I just have to be careful I don't step on it. Do you know the trick for cleaning pastels out of the carpet would be a good lesson. And I just don't step on it. That's important. But you want to vacuum it up right away. So don't wet it. Whatever you do, don't put anything on it. You know that your natural instinct is to say, I'm going to put carpet cleaner on it, right? But what that does is liquefies it and turns it into wet paint, right? And that's exactly what you don't want to do. So if you get most of it up with a vacuum cleaner, then whatever you don't get up, you can come and use some sort of cleaner. And I actually like what is called the Awesome Cleaner that you get. It's called Awesome Cleaner, and you get it at Dollar Tree. And it does pretty good. I've gotten oil paint out of my carpet with that stuff. Alright, so I've created some color underneath the grasses. So the grasses are going to be green, but you know, grasses are not always just a solid green, right? So there's always going to be some dried or dead pieces in the grass. So by putting these colors underneath, it gives you some of that peeking through, so you kind of have some of that dried meadow grasses automatically. And if you remember what my photo looks like, you're probably saying to yourself,
show that.
Oh, I did on the before we got cut off. This is the photo that I'm working from. Did I? So I missed the story on this one. I told us such a good story.
You can tell it again.
I'll have to tell it again because it was a good story. The reference for that comes from a gas station. We'd stopped for gas on our camping trip, and my son was getting gas, and I see this wonderful stand of wildflowers and Queen Anne's lace and these blue. I really don't know what kind of flowers they are, but they're blue. And they're in the Midwest.
What city were you in?
Chicago, well, in Illinois. And right next to the dumpster. So I get out and I'm taking pictures, and you would never know from the photograph that this was right next to the dumpster. And as we get in the car, we're driving off, we're getting ready to drive off, and I see a guy pulling up, and he's on a big gold tractor, and he gets in there and proceeds to mow down. Well, I couldn't watch, but he was in there to mow down.
Chicory.
Chicory, thank you. They're beautiful blue flowers.
That's from Cape.
Thank you.
You have people from South Africa, Germany, Chile.
Well, welcome. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm pulling that dark background into the grasses, breaking it up a little bit. So you put some in, and you take some away. Put some in and you take some away until you get it the way you like it. Well, also notice I haven't done a thing at all to the flowers. The only thing I did was leave room for them because they're going to be lighter than the background. I have what I call a 1-inch rule. So if a flower or a cloud is going to be larger than an inch in the painting, then I leave room for it. In other words, I don't put pastel on it. If the flower is going to be smaller than an inch, then I know that it's going to be very easy to put pastel on top. And so I don't worry about where it's going to go. So since these flowers, here's what the chicory. Since these some of these are bigger than an inch, I did not put any underpainting colors on there. Some of these that are going to be smaller, I can just go ahead and put them on without a problem. These are the base for the blue flowers. So I'm starting off darker than I want them to end up. And I'm arranging them not the way they necessarily are in the photo, but in a way that will be interesting, an interesting composition, and I want to create a movement to the flowers. So I'm blocking in now the Queen Anne's lace. I blocked them in with a mauve-y color, and now I'm going to work on some of the greens. And I'm going to start with a darker green on the bottom of them. on the base. And there's also some of these Queen Anne's lace that aren't quite open, so I want to have a variety of those. And a lot is going on, especially down there. What are you doing? We're having all kinds of technical stuff going on today. That's okay. We're out of practice, maybe. Sometimes it amazes me that our technology even does what we want it to do. So I am gradually building up the flowers, starting with a darker green. The Queen Anne's lace, you know, we think of them, oh, they're white flowers, you know, but I don't use white ever. And I don't use the lightest color till the very end. So I'm building from dark to light. So I'm putting in a lot of greens, but I'm starting with the darker greens first. You can start to see that they are starting to take shape. I'm mixing up some of these greens. And if I didn't put that mauve color in when I did, I could always add it, but I like the way it peeks through the greens instead of me having to put it on top. Okay, what I've done with the greens, by the way, on my tray, can you see it, is I put them in a line so that I know I can go down this line and use them. And it's so much easier to have them this way than for me to have to continually worrying about going back to my larger box and getting out different colors. I talk about that all the time when I do my demos, but if you're new to watching me, I want to make sure you know that that's really one of my main working methods, is to choose the colors in advance so that I can paint with well, I like to say with passion, where I don't have to stop and think. Because when I stop and think, then I tend to want to overthink. Right? Excuse me. So I'm just gradually getting them lighter and brighter. They really don't look like much yet. And the goal is that they will eventually look like something. It doesn't always work out. I think I blogged about that this week, about how it takes miles of canvas or paper, you've all heard that, before you can consistently feel comfortable and confident about what you have to do. So many, many, many paintings and many failed paintings before you can really feel good about it and have success. And I don't have success every time. What you don't see if you see my daily paintings is you don't see how many changes they often go through. Sometimes I share that, but a lot of times I don't. And so, while you might think, oh, there's every time you paint, it turns out and you're happy, and that's not really true. All right, so I've got a lot going on here. Sometimes you have to take not necessarily a break, but you have to simplify things. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just taking my finger and I'm just swiping through. I like all the stuff going on, but I don't want it to be too busy. And could you grab that can of spray? I forgot to pull it over my helper. And I'm still trying to avoid stepping in my mess. That's my fixative Blair, very low odor spray. And what I'm going to do is use just a little bit of it. I want you to see how it darkens. But I want it a little bit darker, and I want to be able to, now when I come back over, I'm going to start within some of the greens, but I want this to stay. I don't want it to go away, so I'm fixing it in place. And while that's drying just a little bit, I'm going to work on the chicory.
I'm getting some more birthdays.
Oh, thank you. My birthday's tomorrow. And tomorrow, what I'm doing for my birthday is helping my daughter set up her 4th grade classroom. So we're excited about doing that, painting, and it's always fun. So let's see, they're really much lighter, but I wanted to start a little bit darker, and then I'm adding the lighter, paler blue.
There's somebody from Ireland, Marie Jean.
Ah, hello. You know I'm going there in, 2 weeks?
Where are you going?
To Wexford for Art in the Open. And I'm teaching 2 workshops and participating. So I'm really excited about that. So like these blue flowers are not the star of the show, so I'm just suggesting them, right? So I don't have to spell them out, I don't have to paint every single petal. But if I indicate a few petals, then hopefully the viewer can fill in the rest and say, oh, okay, I've seen those flowers, I know those flowers. While I'm thinking about it, they're floating, right? So we have to add a little bit of some stems. I want to be careful that the stems don't look like balloons. So I'm just letting the pastel skip around. All right, now I'm going to come and work a little bit more on the Queen Anne's lace because we've got to turn on the lights. They're not light enough. So I'm using, this is a really cool pastel, and I'm not so sure it's going to show up on the video, but it's a iridescent pastel, so it's got a little bit of a sparkle to it, and it's super soft, so it's not taking very much at all for me to make these marks. And what else do I have? Add a little bit of a pale peach to them. So I started off with big simple shapes, and now what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit more detail. But I don't want a lot of detail, and I don't want detail on every single one of the flowers. I really have to decide which ones are the star, and it's probably going to be this area right in here. So I have to finish this bottom part where it connects to the stem, and it's got a darker green bit in here. Whoa, I've got butterfingers. And then I'm going to take the background color, and instead of painting, you know how underneath the Queen Anne's lace it has this kind of structure. So instead of me drawing in that structure, what I'm going to do is put some of these and negatively paint the structure. So I'm taking the background dark and putting it in so that it looks as though that's the structure of the flower.
I'm getting a real close shot.
Okay. I know I've had people request for better close-ups, so we're trying to take your suggestions. So we welcome your suggestions, but we're doing the best we can. We are. Alright. Now I'm going to do a little bit more with the grasses. And since I have this color in my hand, I'm going to use it. This is a nice, it's working as a complement to the blue violet and the blue flowers. This is a nice ochre yellow color. So I had it in my hand sort of by accident, I guess, but then I like the way it works. So notice too that you saw when I just added this ochre color how it just skipped over the color that I already had, and that's because we used the fixative. And so now I'm going to add a little bit more green to the mix, and I'm going into these Diane Townsends, and I like these brighter greens that she has in this set. I do have a lot more greens. I have Terry Ludwig 90-piece set of greens. It's a lot of greens. that's not the right color. I don't know, that's a good question. That's gonna be in my newest PDF. One of the questions, how do you deal with greens? Right, now I'm gonna put on this guy needs a stem. And again, I don't want a balloon, so I'm creating broken lines for these stems. I don't want to have lines like that, so I'm just letting the pastel skip so that I get broken lines. And I liked how this one piece was going off the page. And I'll pull another one in. A lot of times when I'm doing this, I really haven't done much demos with the wildflowers, because a lot of times it's hard for me. See, if I'm having trouble, it's hard for me to verbalize what I'm doing, because it's more like more of an intuitive thing, like I'm feeling my way through it, if that makes sense. And when you feel your way through something, it's not really explainable, if that makes sense. What I can explain is how I make the marks, you know, the type of marks I'm making, the broken lines versus the solid lines, that kind of thing. I can explain that, but as far as explaining every single thing that I do, it's tricky when it comes to the wildflower. One thing I like about the Queen Anne's lace, I'm going into the harder pastels right now, because I want to create some, what? Well, that's not, is that better? I'm sorry for leaning in. I get involved and then it's hard to think about. This is, I don't know, 11 by 14 maybe. It's yours, probably 400 or 500 grit. Now what I'm doing is I'm using harder pastels, so I'm trying to create finer lines. So I'm using a variety of hard and soft. Right now I'm using some of the harder ones to create some of the grasses and leaves and all of the intricate stuff that goes on in this wonderful tangle of weeds by the gas station, by the dumpster weeds. Should I call it that? Mm-hmm. The Midwest has fantastic wildflowers. I remember when we were bringing our son to college and we stopped for gas, and there was the most amazing field of Queen Anne's lace. I mean, it went for as far as your eye could see. And I still paint from those photos that I took. So, you know, you don't have to go to wonderful exotic locations to get great references. Yeah, I'd like to go back there. If you're ever around, I don't know, there's this gas station, and I still see it, you know, in my mind. What I'm doing now is I'm pulling some of the dark back in, because you know I got a lot of it covered up, and I like this, how the dark background was peeking through the grasses. So I'm making marks with this dark, this is Terry Ludwig pastel, and I'm just doing some negative painting in between some of the blades of grass. So it allows some of these blades of grass to look like I want to create depth, so I want some to look like they're in front, some of them are behind, and sometimes it's better to paint what is behind it rather than always what's in front of it. And then I'm going to cover some of it back up. So it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until you get it feeling like you want to. Ooh, I like that, yellow. So sometimes you make a mark by accident, like I just did. Let me tighten this. and I like it, so okay, here's the mistake that sometimes we make. Ooh, I like that. What's better? More of it. Well, sometimes more is not better. So I try to remind myself that then it loses the impact, right? It's no longer important if you do 20 more of them, so I'm going to just leave it alone. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I think I've taken it as far as I can without the benefit of stepping back. I always want to step back and look at it with fresh eyes before I make those finishing marks. Otherwise, what do? We overwork. And I don't want to just babble on and on and on and overwork the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop for the moment and take a break, and I'm going to come back to it. Probably put a few more finishing touches on it, but then I'll post the finished painting on my blog, and then on Facebook if you're watching it on Facebook, and if you're watching it on YouTube, the finished painting will be shown there and also on my blog. So, what?
Thanks for the birthday wishes.
Oh, thank you for the birthday wishes. I'm not even thinking about my birthday, but thank you, and I'll be back when I can. Jenny's worn out today. But thanks for tuning in, guys.